get as many people on as possible. So please, it's another extension of the previous plea to make your point quickly and to obviously give airtime to other callers. Jeff, many thanks for your call. 08704 20 20 20 is the number. Text us 81089. You can email via talksport.net. We've got calls in Gypsy Hill, London, Manchester and Barnet. We'll get to those in a second. George, a lot of the emails and texts coming in wanting to know in a bit more detail your reaction to something that's on the newswires at the moment. And you mentioned it earlier. This is the Hezbollah leader, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, said that he would have not ordered the capture of 2 Israeli soldiers if he had not known it would lead to such a war. Hezbollah guerrillas killed 3 Israeli soldiers and seized 2 more in the cross-border raid on July the 12th, Israel documented. He went on to say, we did not think even 1% that the capture would lead to a war at this time and of this magnitude. You ask me if I'd known on July the 11th that the operation would lead to such a war, would I do it? I say no, absolutely not. And this was covered in an interview that the Sheikh gave to Lebanon's new TV station. A lot of people on the text and email would like a bit more of a detailed reaction from you.
Yeah, well, that's what he said, and of course that's what any sensible person would say, because all previous captures of Israeli soldiers had led to prisoner exchanges rather than war, and that's what they anticipated, I'm sure, when they captured these 2 Israeli soldiers. And I think that the problem was that the Israeli Prime Minister Olmert is a very new and inexperienced and militarily inexperienced Prime Minister. Previous Israeli Prime Ministers, much more hawkish than him, like General Sharon, like Mr. Shamir, the former terrorist gang leader, who boasted that he personally assassinated the United Nations Special Envoy, Count Bernadotte of Sweden, and the other terror gang leader who became a Prime Minister of Israel, Mr. Menachem Begin. All 3 of these Prime Ministers, much tougher men than Olmert, had exchanged prisoners in the past, and in fact had exchanged vast numbers of Palestinian and Lebanese prisoners in exchange for small numbers of Israeli captives, and in some cases dead Israelis, corpses, for large numbers of prisoners. So it was a fair assumption that capturing 2 Israeli soldiers this time would lead to the same outcome. But of course, perhaps to prove the point, perhaps because he was militarily inexperienced and new, Olmert launched the war which killed more than 1,000 Lebanese and has done so much damage, as well as to Lebanon, to Israel's reputation in the world.
08704 20 20 20 is the number. We are making radio phone-in history again this evening on TalkSport. It's the first ever radio phone-in broadcast live from inside a war zone. George Galloway is in South Lebanon. I'm Duncan Barks in London. You can call us, text or email. It is TalkSport 1089 10:53 a.m. across the UK on digital radio. We're also broadcasting this evening across Edinburgh, Fife and the Lothians on Talk 107.
Every Friday afternoon, get set to leap out of your seat like a loon and come on down as we play The Right Price on TalkSport with Norwich Union Direct Van Insurance.
Who is in where? Jeff, you're through to George.
Hello, George.
Yes, Jeff.
George, thank you for going to Lebanon and bringing us your experiences firsthand. I used to travel to the Lebanon regularly in the 1960s to mid-60s, and I listened to your show last night, and you were saying all the carnage, all the suffering that people are going through, and you highlighted the fact that there's no pilfering or stealing or anything going on. Yeah. And I wasn't surprised at that comment, because I found the Lebanese people to be a beautiful, friendly, welcoming people, and I made some lovely friends there. And it's a beautiful country, the mountains and the snow, as you said, the beaches, and Beirut was a beautiful city, and it just breaks my heart what's happening, and I just hope that the powers that be can find an answer to the Palestinian problem, and that people there can lead peaceful and good lives.
Well, thanks, Jeff. That was quite a moving contribution, at least for me, as someone who's loved Lebanon for the best part of 30 years, for 29 years exactly, in fact, since I first came to this country. And one of the heartbreaking things about the drive south today was that Lebanon had just really got back on its feet from the civil war in the 1970s, followed by the Israeli invasion in 1982 and the Israeli occupation of most of the south of Lebanon for nearly 20 years. And the bridges and the roads and the schools and the infrastructure which had just been really built, Lebanon was just coming out of this agony of war and occupation, and is right back in it again. And I'll tell you, the drive, you would not recognize it now, Jeff, to the south is really, it's virtually impossible unless you're prepared to give up the best part of the day to drive to the south of what is a very small country. And it is heartbreaking for anyone that loves Lebanon. Thanks, Jeff.
Many thanks for your call, Jeff. Let's go to Dave in Manchester. Dave, you're through to George in South Lebanon.
Hi, George.
Hi, Dave.
What I wanted to do really was just express my anger at some of the people who've been ringing in, and particularly as a Jew living in Manchester. I was really upset yesterday when you had a woman with, as you pointed out, an English accent who claimed to be an Israeli. And I just think if this really, these people don't understand at all what the root of the problem is. You see, I feel really safe in Manchester. Yet I'm told that I have a right to return to Israel. Israel's a country that I've never even visited, nor had my parents, nor my grandparents. And yet there are tens, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who were born there, whose families have cultivated the land there, who aren't allowed to return. And therefore I really commend the stand that you take, because to me, the whole thing, the whole problem is based on this fundamentally racist law that Israel bases everything it does on.
Well, Dave, that's quite a moving contribution too, and I'm especially grateful for it, because you will have detected being under concentrated fire in the first few calls in this program from supporters of Israel, and wanting to scream out, you're actually not doing any favors for even Israel, let alone for the Jews, by continuing to defend the indefensible, by continuing to refuse to see what most other people in the world can see, that the Palestinians are the people who've been wiped off the map. There's all this talk about wiping Israel off the map, but nobody can wipe it off the map. It's a nuclear-armed military superpower. It can be wiped off the map. But Palestine already has been wiped off the map. The Israelis cannot be driven into the sea, but the Palestinians have already been driven into the sea and driven to the four corners of the earth, where they live as refugees, without any status, without any passports, without any prospects of ever being allowed to return to their homes. And that kind of injustice cannot possibly lead to peace. The anti-war movement has a slogan which is blindingly simple: no justice, no peace. Now, most people have got that by now, at least I hoped so. Most people had grasped that until this fundamental injustice is resolved, there will be no peace in the region. And when there's no peace in the region, we already know there's no peace in the world, because the hatreds and the injustice that is sown here, just in this region where I'm sitting, spreads out across the whole world, and indirectly leads to so much of the hatred and conflict that's going on in the world. So Dave, believe me, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. For a Jew in Manchester to come on the air and make that point is the best news I've had all day.